So before we start on the different scenarios or what where you can use the lightning flow, let's try to understand what is lightning flow basically, or why lightning flows came into picture, or why Salesforce introduced it, and why they are so heavily investing on the lightning flows. Okay, so lightning flows is basically a lightning platform feature which has been created, or which is basically providing you a feasibility to create complex business logic in a very shorter time, just with the drag and drop of the elements. Okay, so as you all know, in our today's digital era, everyone wants their business and their new features to be released as soon as possible. Now if you talk about the traditional method of writing the codes and other stuffs, it takes time because you have to write test classes, you have to do all the different testings and all other stuffs, where and then you have to push it to git and all that, and it takes time. And that's where lightning flows came into picture, where this is a kind of canvas where you can drag and drop different elements, you can connect them together to automate your business processes, as well as create different new features as part of your business processes, and you can release them to the production, or you can make it available for their business as soon as possible. Okay, so this was the reason your lightning flows came into picture. Now what are different types of lightning flows we have available? Okay, so in Salesforce we have majorly five types of lightning flows. There are different other templates as well, but major types of flows are five. Okay, so first is your screen flow. So screen flow is basically whenever you want to create a custom UI in the flow, that's where your screen flow comes into picture. So we will go through each type of flow one by one. We'll see some examples how it looks like on the UI, how you can use it. Okay, so first we can start with our screen flow. So as I was telling, screen flow is basically used, or screen flow you will be creating wherever any user interaction is needed. Okay, so for example, that you have been asked to create a kind of form which will collect the information, and then it will create the account and contact records based on whatever the information you are giving as an input. Okay, now, if you go on traditional way of writing this, then you will write all that HTML, LWC code and all that stuff to build up the UI. But what if I tell you that this whole scenario you can build even within, you can say, less than 2 hours, okay, with the help of your screen flows. So how you can build the screen flow? I'll just show you one of the example. Okay, I was just working on one of the example earlier, and this is what I had built. So let me quickly showcase. So before this I'll show you how you can create it. Okay, so to create a flow, or to create a screen flow, I'll switch to lightning experience. It will be easier. People are using lightning setup nowadays more, so I'll showcase on that. So basically what you can do is you can go to your setup, you can just type the flows, and then you will be landed to whatever the list of flows you already have. Here you have an option to create a new flow. Okay, now as soon as you click on that, you get an option called screen flow. Okay, so these are basically guided flows, as I was telling, and you can use them on different places, like in your quick actions. You can use them in your LWC as a sole template, as a sole tab you can use them. So there are different places you can use it, even in your experience clouds as well, or community clouds. Okay, so you can just select the first option, that is screen flow, and you can click on create. So as soon as you click on create, one of the main thing, or one of the major thing which you will see in screen flow and not in the other flows, is your screen. Okay, so under this screen you have an option, or you have an already provided components which you can just drag and drop to create your whole UI here. Okay, so let's say in our scenario we want two three text boxes where user can enter the detail, and then you can just capture this information to do the further business logic, like creation of account and contact. So for this you don't need to write any kind of code or something, you can just drag and drop existing components provided by Salesforce on this screen. So what you have to do, you have to just select whatever the tech inputs you want. So for that, we will be using, let's say, text. You can just drag and drop multiple text boxes here. You can configure them like by giving the name, the label and all. Okay, you can have first name, you can have some default values into it, you can make it as required. So all these features are available as part of your screen flows. Okay, and not only text, you have multiple other components as well provided. That is your checkbox, you have checkbox group, you have drop downs, you have, and recently Salesforce has introduced something called data table as well. So this is also one of the very interesting component provided as part of screen flow, where you can show the list of records in the format of a data table. You have to just pass the list of the record. Okay, so this is where you have different configurable components provided by Salesforce. Like you can create image and all that, and you can do your, or you can basically build your business logic. So now the scenario which we were discussing for creation of account and contact by capturing the input from the UI, there you can see that here we don't need to write any code, and just with the drag and drop of the components we can build this easily in very few minutes. I mean, you can say minutes, or you can take an hour or something, but it will not take a whole day or something like that. It will be very less time to create these types of functionality. Now I'll just show you how one of the, so let's say I have some account search screen. Okay, so I'm just, let's say, search for an account. So similarly, it's basically a search screen which I had just created, where you can just provide the name of the account and then it will search and it will ask you to create a contact. Okay, so this is first type of flow which we have discussed today. That is your screen flow, where whenever any user inputs are required, interventions are required, in those cases we create screen flows. And the beauty is that these screen flows can be tied to your new LWCs as well. You can create LWC components and bring them to screen flows. In case, let's say, if you have very unique or very stylish component which is not being fulfilled with the lightning flow out of the box components, then you can create your LWC component and you can showcase that also in the screen flows. Okay, so that options are also available. Now next is our record triggered flow. So I hope most of you must be knowing that what are triggers in Salesforce, Apex triggers and all, right? So record triggered flows are again those flows which gets automatically run whenever we do any DML operation, or basically whenever we are doing insert, upsert, update, delete operation on any of the record. Okay, and all these things will run in backend. There will be no manual intervention, or there will be no user inputs and all will be provided. It's just that as soon as you will do, let's say, insert of a record, or if you do a update of a record, automatically this particular flow will get fired. Okay, now this is kind of, you can say, it now it has become majorly a replacement of your workflow rules and the process builder. As you all know, workflow rules and process builders are deprecated and you cannot create them anymore. So these are basically a replacement of your workflow rule and process builder, and much more powerful than workflow rules and process builders. Okay, so now there are two types of record triggered flows. So I'll just show you again how we can create a record triggered flow. So basically we can just click again on a new, and then you get an option called record triggered flow. Okay, now you can just select a record triggered flow, and on the first thing what it asks is on which object you want to create, because these flows will be running only when you update a record, basically do a DML on a record of any particular object, not on all objects, right? I mean, basically, let's say if account records get inserted, then you want to execute this logic. So in this scenario, in these types of scenarios, basically your first step is we need to select an object, that on which object this particular flow will be sit this flow will be sitting on which object. And as soon as any record DML will happen, these flows will get fired. Okay, so let's say I can just select an account. Next is your criteria, basically when you want this flow to get triggered. That is, you want only this to be triggered on creation or only on updation, or basically on both the scenarios, that is update or create, or during the deletion process. Okay. Similarly, you can create your entry condition that let's say you want to run this flow only when the record is inserted with stage as a closed one on the opportunity. Okay. Then those conditions you can enter here. You have different ways of putting the condition, like the straightforward and an or condition, or you can put a complex conditions as well using the custom logic or the formula builders into this. Okay. Now there are, so you must be thinking now that in triggers we have two types of triggers: before triggers and after triggers, right? Similarly, in record triggered flows as well, there are two types. One is your fast field update. Okay. Fast field update is nothing but your more of your before context trigger. Like in normal Apex trigger we have before insert or before update, similarly after insert, after updates and all that, right? So there we segregate them in before and after context. Here also we will be segregating this flow in before and after context. So before context is basically termed as fast field updates. That is, let's say if you want to update or basically you want to set the value of the same record which is initiating this flow. So for example, let's say you have a you have an account. Okay. You need to write a logic that if the account rating is hot, then you want to update the number of employees on account itself to be, let's say, 1,000 or 5,000, something like that. Okay. Now in this scenario, what we have to first think is that we want to update the same record which is initiating this flow. Okay. Or which will be triggering this flow, that is your account record, and on the same record we have to update. So in these types of scenarios we use fast field updates, or basically a before context update, a before context flows. Okay. Next is your action and relatable records. This is called your after context flows. So after context flows are basically those flows which you want to execute on a DML, uh, which will process the related records. So related record means, let's say if I have to process the contact records on, let's say, update of account, or let's say if I have to update the contact records related to that account. So here I'm not updating the same record, but I am updating a related object records. Okay. So in those scenarios we use the after context here, or that is action and related records. So in record triggered flows we have two types of, as I was discussing, we have two types of context. One is your before and after. Before is basically called as fast field update, and after context is called as action and related records. Okay. Now let me, and then let's say as you have created, let's say you are creating multiple um, flows or record triggered flow on a single object, then how you can control the order of execution for them. Okay. Let's say you have two flows, two before flows, or two fast field update flows on account, but you want flow 1 to execute first and then flow to execute later. So how you can control that? That is by using flow trigger explorer. So as soon as you click on flow trigger explorer, let me see, it takes a little bit time. uh, okay, I'll come back to flow trigger explorer once it gets loaded, so that I'll explain you more on that. Okay. So next we will move forward to our next type of flow, that is our scheduled flows. So scheduled flows are basically, these are again a different type of flow. So in our normal Salesforce we have schedulers, right, which basically runs a particular piece of code at a particular interval of time. Or you have, let's say, some batch class which you want to run every night at 2 p.m. So in that cases you write a scheduler class, and then that scheduler class automatically runs on at 2 p.m. in night, every night basically. Okay. But this comes from the coding part. How we can do this in configuration? So to basically give the similar feature, Salesforce introduced something called scheduled flows, where you can schedule a flow to run at a particular interval of time, and from date to end date. So till when you want to execute this flow and at what time you want to execute this flow, this feature is being provided under scheduled flows. Okay, so let me show. Okay, okay, we'll just complete the flow trigger explorer. So as you can see here, let me see which object will be having some. I'll just select opportunity. No, I think contact. Okay, I think I don't have any existing flows. So basically, whenever you open the Flow Trigger Explorer, right, you will get a screen something like this, where you can see all your fast field updates flows into this, your action and related flows under the second section. Okay, now they will be basic. So once let's say you have more than one flow, you will be having an option called editing the order of the execution for those flows. So let's say you have two flows here, flow 2 followed by flow 1. Okay, now it will run flow 2 first, but if you want to run flow 1 as the first execution, then flow 2 should run. In that case, you can just simply click on edit order, and you can edit the order of execution for those flows. This is only available for record triggered flows at this moment. Okay, now we were discussing about the scheduled flows. So basically how you have to write a schedule flow is, or basically when we have to write a schedule flows. So schedule triggered flows are basically, again, let's say you want to build an archival process, okay, where automatically daily night you want to take all the opportunities which are closed lost, and you want to send it to a third party system. Okay, so in that case you want some logic which will automatically pick up the record at midnight. Okay, now, in that cases, we will be using our schedule flows. So as soon as you create a schedule flows, you can select what is the start date, right? So from which date you want this flows to start running and till when. So you have start date, okay, and then you have start time. So let's say I'll keep the start date as this, start time is 12:30 a.m. and what will be the frequency. So whether you want to run it once, whether you want to run it daily, or whether you want to run it weekly. So let's say if I can select the value as run as daily. So this is setting my schedule to run this flow daily until unless I'm not canceling or deactivating this flow. Okay, so this will be the my start date, that is 20th November, tomorrow, and start time will be 12:30 a.m. in the morning. Next is you can select an object as well, which will be basically a primary object for this flow to extract the record. That is, let's say in our case we can select an opportunity, and then further your business logics you can put it into these flows, like getting the record, send calling an apex class, sending it to a third party system, all those business process you can do it. But main information regarding the schedule triggered flow is this is where you can scheduling your flow to run at a particular interval of time. Okay, this is kind of you can say it's kind of mirror functionality of the schedulers what we have in our apex. Okay, so this is our, again, schedule flows where we are scheduling a flow. Next is our auto launch flows. Okay, so what basically auto launch flows are, so let's say these are more of a, you can say, generic or reusable flows which we build in our Salesforce. So you must be knowing that whenever we write in apex as well, we build certain code which can be called from different places, right? Similarly, let's say if you have a flow, which is doing a generic functionality, for example, creation of task or sending an email and all that stuff. So you can create those flows, and then you can call it from different other positions or different other places. Like if you want to call this functionality from an apex, you can create it, or you can call it from apex. If you want to call it from some other flows, some different flows, you can call it from the different flows. Okay. Similarly, if you want to call it from some REST API or anywhere, any different places. So these auto launch flows are basically background flows which doesn't have any kind of UI. You cannot create a UI on auto launch flows, and you you can call them from any other places. They are majorly a generic flows, okay, a reusable flows which we create and we can call it from different places. Now here is one of the example that how you can create create a, or how you can invoke a flow from an apex, our auto launch flow from apex. Okay, so for that we use something called, so let's say I have a flow named as get opportunity stage name. Okay, in I have created an auto launch flows, and this is a get opportunity stage name in which I have to pass the record ID of the opportunity and it gives me the stage name. Very basic very basic flow. Okay, now if I have to call this from apex, okay, then here we use flow dot interview. Okay, so flow dot interview is the syntax to call any flow, any auto launch flows from the apex. Okay, so we use flow dot interview followed by a flow name, so we just create an instance of that. And before this, if you can see, we are creating a map of string comma object. Okay, so this map will go as a parameter into the flow. So there are there will be certain variables in the flow which we need to set to run the flow properly, right? So those parameters you can set it via this particular map. And then you have something called start method. So as soon as you will execute a start method, your flow will execute and it will return you the final outcome. Okay, so this is your auto launch flows. Now if you have to create a auto launch flows again, how we can create? So same way, we can go to flows, we can click on a new flow, and then you have another option called auto launch flows here, that is no trigger auto launch flows. So the example which I showed you here, this is calling the auto launch flows from apex. Similarly, you can call it from REST APIs, even you can call them from the different other screen flows as well. But auto launch flows will not have any screen of itself, they will not be having any screen. Okay, so here you can just select auto launch flow and then you can click on create. So as I was telling, you can see here you will not get the screen option because these flows runs in background. They will do all the background processing. They will not be having any kind of user interaction. So you will not get the screen option here. Okay. And then you have all the DML related options here to create, update, fetching the record, deletion of the record, and all the other features from the flow except the screen flows. Okay. So this was your auto launch flows. Now, last and final one, I would say it's a platform event flows. So as you all know, nowadays all the integrations and most of the things are running on a publish subscribe model, where let's say you have a third party system which publishes the data, which publishes the information, and the subscribers captures it. Okay, to do the processing of the data. Now in Salesforce, we have something called platform events, which is a publish subscriber model again. Okay, now usually earlier what we used to do is for platform events, we had we had to write a trigger on platform event to process their data. But now with platform event flows, you don't have to write any kind of code. You just create a platform event, and then you can create a platform event flow so that it will automatically subscribe to that particular platform event. So how we create that, I'll quickly show you. So let me see if I have the platform event here. So as you can see, I have two platform events. I'll just go to student verification. So this is one of the platform event which I have created in my org. Okay, Now, whenever we click on new flow, we get an option for platform event triggered flow. Okay, and here you will get an option to select the platform event. So we can select whatever the custom platform event we have created, or if you want to use any standard event, you can use that as well. We can select our custom platform event. Okay, and then for the normal business logics we can proceed with like creation of a record or something like that. So I can show you one of the platform event record. One second. Yeah, so this is one of the platform triggered flows which I had created long back, where as soon as we receive the information regarding the college name, student name, first name, it checks whether there is already a college existing. If no, then it will create a college, it will create a contact, and it will associate to that particular college. Okay, so this is one of the sample. What you are seeing here is a platform event triggered flows. Now, how we usually test it? So for testing a platform event, we can usually go to workbench, and then we can just execute the, or we can just create a record in the platform event object. So this will basically fire an event which will be captured by your flow, and then the business logic will happen and it will create the records and all that. So let's say if I want to do uh, i'll just I'll just give it as student one, and then I'll try to execute this. Okay, I just need to log in again. So there will be basically post followed by our name of the platform event. So I'll just give some details here. And I'll give the last name. Okay, so let's say I'll just give as demo, and I'll try to execute this. So as soon as I executed it, it is showing the it is success as true. Now, as per my logic, it should create a account record and it should create a contact record. So as you can see, it checked for the Kanyakumari Dev Group account, what I have given in the college name. And if I go into this, it shows you I have a new contact here created, that is student one demo, which I had passed here. Okay, so this is how as soon as I release this event, or as soon as I publish this event, my flow automatically captured it, because this flow is subscribed to that particular platform event, and it automatically captured the event, and then it executed the flow here. Okay, so this is one of the beautiful feature of lightning flows which has been provided to us, where you can use it on the platform events as well. Okay, now there are certain limitations as well when you're using the platform event flows, where you can have maximum of 2000 event messages in a day. Okay, or basically in a batch you can have only 2000 messages. Okay, so these are some of the flows, lightning flows types we have in our Salesforce, where you can use these features to build the functionality, to build the features on a very fast pace. Okay, so this is what I had from my side. Anyone is having any question, you can let me know.
Alok, thanks for the great session.
Sure, thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you for giving time. It is very useful for all the